Okay, I think we're recording. Welcome everyone. This is Mauricio Quiroga. Mauricio is a leader of a company that applies artificial intelligence to generate fresh cash in a fast way. He's also an economist and an MBA from Berkeley. Today, we're discussing the end of strategy. Mauricio, we discussed a little while ago that since a strategy was created to generate a monopoly, in a way Michael Porter designed the 5 forces so the company could become as close as possible to a monopoly. If in the world today there seems to be so many monopolies in every area like Google and Apple and so on, then is it the end of strategy?
Well, thank you, Ignacio, for this opportunity. And your question is quite interesting. I think it's strategy as we know it, in my point of view, it's a thing that has to be totally reconfigured. And why is that? In my point of view, we are seeing a totally different world as the one that we had before. And remember that to understand the 5 forces, you always have to do the SWOT analysis. So if we made a SWOT analysis today, it's changed completely. The configuration of how companies compete are totally different. And why is that? Because we have an enormous crisis. We are seeing a new era, in my point of view. All the relationships that we are seeing yesterday that were strange, like the thing that we are doing right now is totally normal right now. So I can do business globally. A lot of companies are going out of business, especially those that lives or their business model are upon, okay, let's gather a lot of people and make business upon that. No? So like a restaurant, an office, a cinema, all those kind of businesses are changing quite fast. And that hyper competition has made this like a war. We are living like a war. This hyper competition, think of this quarantine is similar to getting bombed. We have the economical experience of bombing, of the sad bombings of the 2 World Wars. No? London was bombed, Frankfurt was bombed, and nobody went out home to buy anything at all. So we understand right now the economics dynamics of those kind of things. And the Economics published an article that we are living in a war. We are not living in a common situation. So if you are living in a war, in my point of view, the strategical tools are not suitable anymore because those tools that are great tools are designed for a different reality. So if you think, who has the most knowledge on how to manage huge complex situations like the one we are seeing right now? The military. So in my point of view, we have to use elements for the military doctrine and get those elements and merge it with the traditional strategy and think totally different as the way we are thinking right now. So if you use traditional tools, for instance, okay, let's have a meeting, let's plan, let's analyze SWOT to develop a strategy, then to implement the strategy, then to control that strategy. That is not suitable anymore because the world is moving too fast. So the technology, the philosophy that groups all this knowledge of the humankind to manage extreme situation is in the military doctrine. So for instance, an example, maneuver. Maneuver is a military concept. So, and we in companies don't use maneuver as much as we should use it, because it's how I move resources tactically in terms of competitors. And right now, yes?
But let me interrupt you. And what is this military tactics has to do with having huge companies that absorb other companies all the time, that become bigger and bigger than countries, and with whom you cannot compete?
That's an excellent question, because it's exactly the point, and in that, the answer for that, in my point of view, is guerrillas. You have to use guerrillas to compete with these huge companies, because they are, if we compare it to an army, they are too big, they have too much power, and the only way to compete, myself as a small company, is to use these maneuvers, these guerrilla strategies, guerrilla tactics, And that's the way to compete with these big corporations that provide also with the hyper competitive environment that we are seeing. So if I use traditional strategy to try to compete with Google artificial intelligence or Amazon artificial, I will be totally lost. I have to use guerrilla strategies to go in a special way to the clients, to understand where is the client, to personalize my services. A lot of different ways of doing so, using talent in Indonesia, in other countries to be competitive. So it's a totally different point of view. We have in our company missions. We follow the missions. We see the results of the mission. We have a command center in which we understand everything that's going on. But saying that is very important to say. Strategy is great. It's a great tool, the business strategy. What you have to do is to reorganize that, to reconfigure that to the new situation that we are seeing right now.
And how did you see companies like Amazon, for example, that have become almighty and the owner of Amazon is worth more than, I don't know, anything before? How do you compete against that? What are the gorillas that you will use to compete against that?
That's an excellent question. And I always like to say judo. You have to use judo. Yes, you have to use their own power to make judo with them. So I use their platforms of artificial intelligence. I use their platform of having data. And since they are very open in terms of their prices and their costs, I configure products that they are not able to reach, special niches. So I copy paste their enormous platforms, or I use their platform, the machine learning platforms, and I go to the niche that they are not able to serve. And those niches are enormous because the world is growing very fast. The fastest growing countries in the world are in China, are in Asia, of course, and in Latin America. Latin America, not today because we are seeing an enormous crisis. However, the fastest growing countries in the world are Latin American countries and Asian countries, and Amazon is not able to serve all of those countries. So this is a very particular time because I can use Amazon, Google infrastructure, billions of dollars of infrastructure. So I enter to those markets. So for instance, I enter to an Argentinian market with an Argentinian company, and my clients saying me, okay, Mauricio, how much is your investment? And I said, $20 billion. What? Yes, I use $20 billion infrastructure. I rent that infrastructure, but it's all $20 billion. I use Amazon, I use Google, I use all this technology, and I rent that technology. I didn't invest $20 billion. So that's the way in which you face these enormous, efficient companies.
So it's surprising what you're saying. You're saying basically that the small dog can still find a place amongst the spaces that are left by these humongous dinosaurs that walk and leave opportunities.
Exactly. That's the only way to do so. And as I told you before, we use guerrilla strategies to go and find places. And what we want to do, or what we want to happen, is that Amazon buy us. That's our dream, or Google. And that's all the small companies that are going to niches. Their dream is, okay, exit strategy. You know why, Google? I'm a nice company, place buy us, no? And in that way, that's also a situation that I think will change in some years, because the Congress here is discussing about antitrust laws for these among us companies.
Well, that's a topic for another interview another day. Thank you very much, Mauricio. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks to you. It's been really great.